Office, who was killed in the line of duty on February 5th, 2018. And whereas each loss of a law enforcement officer is heartbreaking, and losing 3 heroes in 3 months is a call for peace and a signal to all Coloradans to support and pray for our men and women in uniform who protect our communities each day. Now, therefore, I, Carol Dodge, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, do hereby proclaim February 12, 2018 as Adams County Deputy Heath Gum Day. In the City of Northglenn, in honor and remembrance of Adams County Deputy Heath Gum, whose selfless service and sacrifice is an inspiration to all. I encourage all residents to take time out of their day to show law enforcement officers and their families how much we value their service to our cities, counties, and states. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 12th day of February 2018. Tonight we have a very special video that we are going to show first before I hand the proclamation.
Twelve 15. Twelve 15. 12:15. No response. All units stand by for a tone. This is a final call for Deputy Heath Gum, 12:15. Deputy Heath Gum was fatally shot on January 24th, 2018, while answering the call for duty. He gave of himself while serving his community with courage and valor. The men and women of Adams County Sheriff's Office are forever grateful and proud to have served with Deputy Gum and will never forget his ultimate sacrifice. All units break for a moment of silence. Deputy Heath Gum, may you rest in peace, knowing that your strength and legacy lives on in your wife and family, and that your honor will continue on with all of us. 12:15, you are clear to end of watch. Thank you for your service. Rest easy, sir. We have the watch from here. 12:15 is end of watch for the final time. ACSO call sign 12:15 and badge number 381 is hereby retired. Dispatch is clear.
Thank you, and actually I would ask you all to join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Tonight we have a very special guest to receive the proclamation, and that is Adams County Sheriff Michael McIntosh, one of my favorite people. And we're going to let you speak.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to receive this on behalf of the men and women of the Adams County Sheriff's Office and the family of Deputy Heath Gum. I can tell you that over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's been very difficult for the Sheriff's Office. And quite honestly, if it wasn't for the prayers and the support of our community, our cities around us, the law enforcement officers, the first responders, it would be an incredibly difficult time to try to get through. Unfortunately, you know, when we see tragedies like this, it's very, very difficult for us to walk through those things. But it's not in vain. When we get to see the community come around and support the prayers that have gone out, the just countless hundreds, thousands of cards and letters that we have received at the Sheriff's Office. We actually have a room right now that is set up that we are compiling all of that information. His wife, Natasha, was with us last Friday going through some of that with us, but it continues to come in, and we're so grateful and thankful for that. And I do really appreciate the fact that we are taking time to notice that losing 3 deputy sheriffs in the course of 45 days, thank goodness has never happened before, but I can only pray that it never happens again. And to walk through this, if we had to do it alone, would be impossible. So I again thank you for your support. I thank you for taking the time out to recognize the service of not just Deputy Heath Gum, but all of our law enforcement officers in this area and the way that they provide the service to their communities. It's an honor to be able to receive that from you this evening. Thank you.
Here's your proclamation, and I just want to say Northglenn is just so honored that you're here with us and that you would come and share, your valuable time. The outpouring from just Northglenn residents when you had your procession through here was amazing, and that was all throughout Adams County. And so our hearts and our thoughts go out to the families of the lost deputies. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Chief, were you going to say some words or no?
That video, I'm good.
Okay. Thank all of you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Economic Development Update with Debbie Tuttle. And I'm sorry that you come first after that because that's difficult.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Debbie Tuttle, Economic Development Manager and the Northglenn Urban Renewal Executive Director. And boy, that is tough to follow something like that. I'm going to start out with something good that kind of relates to that, in that Northglenn was ranked 26th safest city in Colorado among 270 cities and municipalities. So on behalf of our police department, which I think they just left, they're doing a fantastic job, and we should all be very, very proud of everything they do every single day for us. So in my economic development report, I wanted to announce a few things. I am so pleased. I think you all know that education is truly a passion of mine, and workforce development, because our education and our schools is definitely our future workforce and is going to be taking care of us in the future, as we all know. Northglenn High School graduation rate increased 20%. 20%, almost 90% now since 2010. That's when they put the STEM school in, and that started. I'm just so impressed with those numbers because many of you know that Northglenn High School had not only a low graduation rate, but there wasn't a lot of enrollment in there. Now there's waiting lines, to get in, so that really proves what great work that they're doing over there. As well as Adams 12 five-star schools is more than 5% higher than the state average at 84%. I'm an Adams County graduate. My kids were Adams County graduates, so I am so pleased to be seeing the progress that's going on in our school districts. The Colorado Department of Education awarded 5 awards in 3 different categories to Holstrom K-8, the STEM Lab, Northglenn Middle School, Northmore Elementary, and Stuckey Elementary. Again, great work for our schools and for all the teachers that are helping with that. Business expansion and retention projects to talk about is Boondocks Expansion. They're installing a new 38-foot ropes course with 31 different walkways and a sky rail zip line. So that'll be really a fun addition over there. That should be open at the end of March.
Debbie, can I ask you really quickly?
Absolutely.
Where are they putting that?
Where the youth, I'll call it the small children's race track was right there. They're taking that out and replacing it with the ropes course.
Okay, I was wondering, thank you.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, you probably have all noticed, has been demoed, and they'll be building their new state-of-the-art 3,000 square foot building there. They hope to open late spring or early summer. They're going, construction is going on very rapidly there. Many of you attended the Office Depot, a new location, which was down at where Marshall's was. They took 18,000 square feet. This is the second store of what they call the Store of the Future in Colorado. We have that right here in Northglenn, so it's something to be proud of. If you haven't visited it, it definitely is a different model, store model, than before. It's very impressive. New housing opportunities. As you know, there hasn't been a lot of new housing in Northglenn over the years. Carrick Bend was the first multi-tenant or any kind of housing that we've had for over 12 and a half years, and that happened about 4 years ago. We've got the new addition of the Northglenn Pavilions Villas. They did their grand opening about a week ago, and that's over at 122nd and Claude. They're building townhomes with 1,667 square feet and 1,823 square feet, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. They have lofts and garages, and some of them with basements. They're starting at the high 300s. So that's a great addition to Northglenn's housing inventory. New businesses. Bravo's Italian Restaurant has opened. The Mercantile at Carl's Farm, that's the old Carl's Farm store, and if you haven't gone in there and visit, I really encourage you to do so. They have unique furniture selections by artists in there, so it's totally different than what the former store was, and they also have consignment antiques in the back. We are planning to have a ribbon cutting, an official ribbon cutting in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks with them, so you'll get an opportunity to see it firsthand. Then there's several other businesses in the report that are in there. Page 4, I will bring to your attention that we had 48 new employers for 2018, which added 328 employees and absorbed 130,758 square feet. 20 businesses did close. Those are listed on page 7 of the report for your review. We had several business events that occurred in December and January. That was the Count the Lights, the 11th annual. We had our Stonehawker Business After Hours, which was very successful. And we held a Lunch and Learn, which was Profit First 101, which was well attended as well. To give you, lastly, an update on commercial real estate for the 4th quarter, our office vacancy rates are up to 11.6. That's probably the highest I've seen since I've been here. And that's mainly due to the Colorado Christian University moving out. They took a lot of space, 14,000 square feet. The industrial's down. Again, this is always a challenge for us, less than 1%. It's at 0.8. Retail is pretty much the same as it was last year at this time and last quarter at 7.4. And that's really good when you think about Marketplace is about 60% vacant. And we're still, at the same place that we were last year at the beginning of the year and also at the end. So that's very encouraging. And then on page 5, the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority for December and January, it shows you the different resolutions that we voted on. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Not a question, but just a clarification for residents that hear 20 companies closed.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly some of them are true closures.
Right.
A couple of them on the list might have been purchased and are folding into another business, and some of them are just success stories that they outgrew their space here, started their roots here, but needed to move to a larger facility. So sometimes it's a great thing, even though we do have to say bye to some of these tenants.
Absolutely.
Not always in a negative.
Absolutely. And if you look at the list, you'll see many of those. Toy Tech Lifts, they started in their garage. They went into their first space in the industrial park, moved again to the second space in the industrial park, third and fourth. And then they really didn't have any room to grow. And believe me, we did try to keep them here, but they found a great new location in unincorporated. So to respond to what you're saying, absolutely, we're growing entrepreneurs here every single day. a Beer by Design was bought by another company, and there's a new brewery going in there. So there's a lot of stories behind this, including KinderCare learning centers, which we're closing centers around the nation. You know, so there's things that are kind of out of our control, and then there's some things that, again, there's reasons for why people have. I can see 2 on here that they retired. You know, after many years of being here in Northglenn. So it sounds high, but realistically, it's actually lower than it was last year, considerably. And more than half than last year.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions for Debbie?
Thank you.
Very much. Our next item will be Michael Stricker presenting the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Strategic Plan. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. Let me get this going here. Thanks for giving us some time to talk about our new 5-year strategic plan. I am the Cultural Programs and Senior Center Supervisor for the city. One of my main responsibilities is working as the Director of the Arts and Humanities Foundation. We've worked under a strategic plan for a number of years, if not decades. I've been here for 10 years, and we do make periodic updates to the strategic plan. This one was fairly significant in light of the potential new theater that we're looking at. So it's an exciting time, and we were excited to be able to present to you. I will also be joined by Miss Rosie Garner here. All of you know her. She is the chair of the Arts and Humanities Foundation, also a mentor of mine, I must say. And she, flattery, right? Yeah. No, and so she's here to present as well. And so she'll be up here in just a moment to present. We also have some of our other board members here as well. I did want to introduce them. Sharon Whitman and Jay Hadamio are here. They are our newest board members. Diane Lewis is our secretary. And actually, Kit Steffen is here. She is not a board member. We have been trying to recruit her for a few months now, so I think this is a good sign that she's here. So, thank you again for allowing us to present. So, arts and culture on a municipal level really began in the mid-'70s when the city planners at the time decided to build a theater inside of a recreation center. It's extremely unique to have done that, and we've now had 40 years of success in that particular facility. The D.L. Parsons Theater continues to be unique in the marketplace. One of the best things they did, and all of this is just background to lead up to the strategic plan, is that one of the best things they did when they built that facility was they built a fly space so that you can fly sets in and out, and they built large dressing rooms. So what that allowed for was we are a performance theater, as opposed to a lecture hall, a concert hall. Broomfield Auditorium is this great facility that is literally only 5 miles from here. It's just right down 120th. They've been open for about 15 years. They do not have a fly space. They do not have large dressing rooms or a green room. It is a great lecture concert hall. In a way, it's a bit of a sister theater to us. We do trade a lot of information. If there's rentals I can't handle, I send them over there. We've got a great working relationship. But with the North Metro market, we have very specific niches that both of us are sort of going after. So the D.L. Parsons Theater is still really well placed to do what it does in the North Metro area. We've also gone through a number of upgrades over the years, technologically specifically. So arts and culture creates a lot of impact in Northglenn. In many ways, it's like economic development. It's about getting bodies here to Northglenn to spend money, to experience Northglenn. And just a few numbers to sort of illustrate that impact is since 1990, the foundation has received $1.5 million from the SCFD. The SCFD is the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. It is a tax, it's a voter-approved sales tax of 1 penny on every $10, and it's in the 7 metro counties. And it began just before the foundation began, and in that time we've received that $1.5 million. We continue to this day to be one of the top 2 or 3 recipients within Adams County for SCFD dollars. So it's impressive. I'm also happy to say that in the time that I've been here, we've now doubled the value of our public art collection. It's now worth $600,000, which is incredible for a city of this size. All that sculpture is a city asset. It belongs to the city, and we're proud of that. And then again, just in the 10 years that I've been here, we've had nearly 150,000 people come to a Northglenn Arts event. That does not include the 75,000 estimated people that experience our public art every year. That is strictly people that are coming to productions in the theater, coming to a summer concert, a summer movie. Again, our theater's only got about 320 seats, so it's a very, very busy space. So Northglenn Arts, when I started here 10 years ago, we had, it was kind of a blessing and a curse. We had really diverse programming. We were doing all kinds of stuff, but there really wasn't an umbrella. So each program was kind of sort of branded, but it was a little bit confusing when you're trying to put that out there into the market. So what we did there shortly after I started, a couple years in, is we rebranded everything under this umbrella of Northglenn Arts, trying to keep it simple, succinct, easy to understand. You know, for instance, culture, that tends to be a word that can be, you know, any number of people can determine that it's this or it's that, or it gets a bit confusing. But Northglenn Arts is what we've sort of branded everything as. And that's also what led to the redo of the website, northglennarts.org, which is extremely, we're extremely happy to have it. We finally are in the 21st century and we can sell tickets online and all that stuff. So that's a great success story. So really you can break our programming into 3 different areas: the theater, concerts, events, and public art. So within the theater, not to spend too much time on this, but you know, we like to, when we get a chance to brag, we're going to. So Northglenn Youth Theater really is our crown jewel program. It's nearly 25 years old, and it's hugely successful. So NYT is unique in that it's a highly rigorous program. This is not just sort of daycare on stage for, you know, kids to hang out. This really is, we cast kids 8 to 18. It's highly competitive. Just this weekend, this last week, we had auditions for Big Fish. We had 70 kids audition, and we only got 40 roles. They rehearsed for 9 weeks, and then they performed for 2 weeks. And it's highly preparatory. It's a great program. Because of the success of that program, we then took all of our sort of scattered shot programs like classes and camps and whatnot. It wasn't very organized. So we took the success of NYT and we created the Academy. And so the Academy is specialized camps, workshops, classes for theater, everything from mask making to a class on Shakespeare for youth, to movement for the actor. And the Academy has kind of blown up over the last few years because of our branding efforts. It's really, really paid off. Missoula Children's Theater has been here for almost 30 years. We have 2 residencies a year. The kids come in, they audition on Monday, and they perform 2 shows on Saturday. It's a great way for youth to kind of get their feet wet to see if they like theater or not. Northglenn Players also came out of Northglenn Youth Theater. The problem is we have all these kids that turn 19 and then they disappear and they do things other places. And we heard a lot from their families that we needed more programming for adults. And on top of that, over the last 20 years or so, there's been a lot of adult theater groups that have closed in the North Metro area. So we saw a need. We started the Players about 5 years ago, and it just keeps growing every year and becoming more and more popular. Northglenn Presents would be anything that is something that we did not produce. So when you produce something, you cast it, you build the set, etc. Northglenn Presents would be something that that's something that's packaged by another theater, you purchase it, and then you sell tickets. We did Guys on Ice a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's hilarious, about a couple of guys fishing in Wisconsin. Really funny. It was an Aurora Fox production. So we brought that in, sold it up here, and it did really well. So concerts and events is exactly what it looks like. Essentially, you've got Stephen Stokes, who does all of the gigantic events. Anything that's not gigantic is mine. And it's in the theater, or we do like summer concerts and summer movies. A lot of that is geared towards specific demographics. For instance, the travel films, we present those at 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday mornings, and that's really geared towards our senior population. That is also almost at 30 years old, believe it or not. And then public art. Public art has become a huge part of the identity of Northglenn, frankly. It's become very popular because of the reach that we now have. Art on Parade is only 17 years old, if you can believe that, Joyce. It is only 17 years old, and in that time, we've really, really grown our collection, including large-scale commissions, and then proudly in 2016 we dedicated our first ever sculpture garden. So the way that public art works, and actually we'll touch on that here in a second. I want to jump ahead. I did want to watch just a few minutes of this video. If you have time, check it out because it is longer. We had to do this for a grant a few years back, and it's just a great representation of what we do. And I said if Bob couldn't get the video to work that he'd act out a scene from it, but it looks like he's got it.
He's got that covered.
Terrific surprise. Once upon a time, this place was infested. Freaks on every corner. I had them all arrested. Hey, nanny, nanny, nanny knows. If you walk the...
Watch more of that at home. So that's a great example of what we do over there. It is a few years old now, and some of those kids are actually off onto bigger stages. So we're proud of that. Shrek ended up being one of our highest selling productions we've ever done. So, the Arts and Humanities Foundation, this is where we get into how this all comes together. So, the NAHF was founded in 1990. It is a separately run 501c3 organization. We do our own separate 990. We do 1099s for all of our own contractors. We have 9 volunteer board members, of which some are here tonight. They volunteer all of their time. They're the ones that make the decisions on the board. We also have representation as non-voting for checks and balances. Myself and then Mayor Dodge as the City Council liaison. We obviously provide a lot of input. I do a lot of reporting, but the board really does run itself. Its basic function is to provide program funding and advocacy for arts and culture opportunities. This is how the financials work, because oftentimes people do have questions about this. Essentially, all contributed income flows through the Arts and Humanities Foundation. So you can see there grants, donations, ad sales, recognition-based, that tends to be things like sponsorships, all flow through the Arts and Humanities Foundation. Then on the city side, that's where all the earned revenue goes. So for instance, when we did Mary Poppins this last fall, all of the grant money that we went out and got, all the donations, that all went through the foundation, and all of the ticket sales and registrations for Mary Poppins all went to the city, okay? And there is some supplemental income there for the foundation just to diversify with concession sales and merchandise, and this is how we then spend that money. So with all that contributed income on the NAHF side, that mainly pays for theater production hard costs, so that's props, costumes, set pieces, theater production contractors, so that's designers, you know, the costume designer, the set designer, all of the fundraising expenses. The NHF covers all of the public art program hard costs. So when there's a sculpture that's purchased, that's done by the foundation, including all of the yearly maintenance. So all of that is literally the money goes into Horizons North Credit Union Bank, and then the checks are written directly out for all of those costs. The city, with all of the earned revenue, that then helps offset what you see over here on the city side, which is mainly salaries. There's myself and Christopher Waller, who's the technical coordinator. We're the 2 full-time employees. And then we've got 3 part-time employees. Kimberly Youngian basically does all of the programming, our marketing coordinator, Linda, and our house manager, Candace. So we've got 5 of us that's running all of this programming. And then class contractors, that's mainly anything within the academy that we're paying a teacher or a contractor to come in and do. The city pays for that. And then facility costs. So whenever, that's why we come here to ask for a new light board or a new soundboard, and that all happens on the city side. There are some exceptions. We do share costs for marketing between both organizations, and then a lot of the outdoor productions, some of that kind of goes back and forth as well. So just to highlight that financial structure in 2017, so just for Northglenn Arts, we saw nearly 17,000 people come to a Northglenn Arts events. That includes the Northglenn Youth Theater, players, a cappella, etc. Again, it does not include any attendance to our public art out in the parks. And then with our rentals, there was about 10,000 people that came through our rentals, and that was on one of the previous slides. One thing to illustrate about the rentals that come through the theater, it's a really great setup. We provide the space at a rental fee to 20 to 40 rental groups a year. And these are folks from chorales to heritage events, cultural events. It's a lot of product that we can't produce. So it's great. These are separate 501c3, many of them 501c3 organizations that need a home, and we are their home. So we had about 10,000 people come through the space via the rentals. And then we have almost 600 participants, and that's significant. Those are kids that are here, that are at the facility every day participating in our events. Income, we saw an 11% increase in contributed income from 2016 to 2017, which is fantastic. 3% increase in earned income. And I will say that we have done all of this without our I-25 marquee for a year and a half. But CDOT says they're almost done, so we're going to hopefully see that marquee here soon. And you'll see those numbers go up. Although the 3%, I have to say, it is great. It's a great number. When you think about most of our products cost anywhere between $4 and $12, that's great. It's great to see things moving in the right direction. And then also uniquely in 2017, our public art grew in some interesting ways. So the first citizens purchase and donation to the collection. When citizens pick the 6 that are going to go out in the park for Art on Parade, those 6 are available for purchase. The one that wins, the city always buys, or the foundation buys and then gifts to the city. Well, one of the pieces that wasn't getting purchased was actually purchased by Steve Austin, one of our, everybody knows Steve, and he's a longtime volunteer and resident of the city. He purchased the sculpture and then donated it back to the city on behalf of the Northglenn Bike Program. You guys will definitely be hearing more about that in the next couple of months when we're ready to do a dedication. And then Webster Lake Promenade sculpture. I hope all of you started to see the very tall grasses that are over out in the parking lot. This has been in the strategic plan since 2000. So that's a big project that we're very, very proud to finally get off the ground. We have a number of things we still need to get done in the next couple of months, but again, you guys will hear about that as well. So before I bring Rosie up, I just wanted to kind of show you a map of what that collection looks like right now. We have the 17 People's Choice winners throughout the city. We've got the 9 additional commissions, which includes like, you know, the Veterans Memorial and others. And then I did want to point out again that sculpture garden. What's great about the sculpture garden is that the majority of our collection and all of the other parks is really added value. So folks are usually at the park doing other things. They're walking the trails, they're out playing football, or they're doing whatever, and the sculpture is there to add some value to their experience in Northglenn. The sculpture garden is a destination. It's a place where school groups, visitors to the city, or citizens go to actually look at the public art. So when you create that density and you create that mass, which will keep happening over the years now, it actually becomes a destination. And it is not a coincidence that it is right next to the marketplace. So, all right, I will ask Rosie to come up and take a turn.
This is a ridiculously large podium. Makes me look smaller than I am. I just want to. Can you just back it up to that map? Michael doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm just. As you can see, there's one area of Northglenn that does not have. That we haven't done any installations, and I guess I'm calling on the Ward 4 council people to help us out, because we really, every time we want to do an installation, we look at Ward 4, we look at that area, and we just simply can't find a suitable location. But maybe you know the nooks and crannies better than I do of that ward, and could maybe help us out in the future. So,
be happy to.
Good, thank you. I just want to, I'm going to start out by going over just very briefly the last strategic plan. We do it in 5-year increments, and I'm going to just quickly impress you with what we've done in the last 5 years. First of all, we adopted a public art policy, which basically describes how we do our acquisitions contractually, how the money is spent. It's a very formal document that really protects us from as we purchase large pieces of art. And it also addresses donations of art and how that happens and how we scrutinize those kinds of situations. So anyway, that was a big deal, and we hadn't had a public art policy in the life of the board, and but we do now. We also have a marketing strategic plan. We have a fund development strategic plan. These are all things that have been accomplished in the last 5 years. We have a sculpture garden. That was big. I mean, we envisioned that a long time ago, and it came into fruition this 5-year period, ending in 2018. So we're very proud of that sculpture garden. There's about 6 or 7 pieces in there now. We have a lot of plans for it, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we go into the new strategic plan. Of course, we have been planning ever since the idea of the promenade was envisioned many years ago, when I was on council actually, and we envisioned some kind of art there. And in our strategic plan, we included that we wanted a piece of some significant, unique piece of art in that promenade, or whatever the retail development was going to be. And that occurred, as you know. We converted all of our website and all of our branding into northglenarts.org. That's a huge accomplishment, and makes our visibility and our recognition a lot easier for the public. And Michael mentioned the purchasing of tickets online. I mean, we screamed about that for a long time, so that's a huge thing. Michael represented Northglenn on the Adams County Arts, Culture, and Venue Task Force, which was big for the city to be able to coordinate what we're doing with what the rest of the county was doing and what their plans were. So that was a huge contribution on his part, and I'm sure they appreciated his expertise, because he certainly has it. And I just want to read this one. This is 5 years old. You got to remember this. Advocate for cultural facility needs during potential development of new Northglenn Recreation Center. So I just want you to know it was the Arts and Humanities Foundation that conceived of the new rec center. Oh. Okay, just so you know that. We really enhanced our fundraising activities this year. I know you know that we're at every summer concert and every a cappella concert and 4th of July for selling beer and wine, and we do very well. We're very friendly people, and we do a really good job of fundraising. We also were part of Colorado Gives Day this year, and we were successful. I think it's going to grow. This was our first year, so we're exploring other ways of fundraising for the foundation. We also hired an individual to write grants for us on a piece-by-piece basis, and she was able to get a Colorado Creative Industries grant this year. So as you can see, we're exploring all of our options. It was a good 5 years, and I hope you can see it as much as I have. So the next 5 years, this is our mission, vision, and purpose. And I just want to say, as a 501c3, basically you can't change that. This is the same, pretty much same mission, vision, and purpose we've had for some time. So it's always very generic and doesn't get into any detail. And so, okay, let's see. Next, I guess. Okay, this is basically some of the highlights. I'm not going to go, you've got the strategic plan in front of you. I just want to mention there's some goals. And the goals, I just want to say, are, I'm just going to pick some key words that really describe the whole strategic plan. And that is an arts destination. We want to advocate for a new theater. We want to keep our strong partnership with the city. We want to collaborate, we want to brand, and the last one is we want to make sure that we're recognized and that our story is out there. So that's kind of the main goals. So how we're going to do that is we're going to pay constant attention to the market demands, and by that we kind of mean that there's a lot going on around us in other cities, and we want to keep an eye on what everybody else is doing. We do everything better, I like to think. We're much more unique, we're much more creative, but we like to keep an eye on what everybody else is doing. We want to explore innovation and unique productions, and that's pretty much Michael's job, to bring really unusual and unique productions to our theater and to our parks and everything and our other venues. We want to diversify our funding through grants and, of course, board direct involvement, which we are a very involved board. We want to keep the Art on Parade fresh and engaging. We talked a bit about tweaking it a little bit and maybe making it a little different. We have a retreat every year in November, and that's probably going to be one of our topics, is to take a look at the Art on Parade. Some other cities are starting to copy us, which is the best form of flattery in my book, but we really want to stay ahead of that one. We want to understand the evolution of public art and potential spaces, and by that we mean public art isn't just you know, statues on pedestals. We've moved into kinetic art in Northglenn. We've moved into all different kinds of art installations. We looked at different locations. We put a piece on our trail, on one of the trails this year. So we're starting to look at that we don't just have to put art in parks, nor does art have to be on a pedestal as a statue or some kind of sculpture. We're going to hang in there with the RTD station. I know it's going to be a lot longer than we all anticipated, and I can't believe how long it's going to be. Being at the beginning end of it when I was on council, to see it now is just amazing to me. But we do want to have a voice in that, whatever happens at that station from an art standpoint. And then, of course, we'll continue always to advocate Northglenn arts to the county and other cities. So that's kind of the synopsis of where we're headed in the next 5 years. And does there anybody have any questions for me?
Questions for Rosie? No?
No? I think I'm going to turn it back to Michael then.
Okay, Michael.
All right, thank you, Rosie. Okay, and so I was going to put a finer point on The new beginning, the new facility. So the Arts and Humanities Foundation did make it a point that they wanted to specifically put some details in the strategic plan regarding this potential new space because it greatly changes what the Arts and Humanities will do. It doesn't change its foundation, but it definitely is a new ball game. Our considerations are extensive. We feel that what we talked about and what we are recommending to the council is extensive, and it honors the excitement and potential of a new space, but also complements 40 years of history. But even more importantly, it perfectly aligns with what we're hearing from the public. So this whole public output process with BRS, we have been a part of that as well. And so what we have reflected in the strategic plan is what the public is saying as well. As you can see there, we considered capacity, revenue generation, and operations. On an operational standpoint, a lot of that doesn't change, but we wanted to make sure that it was said. I've been through other processes working at the Arvada Center and other places where when they go to build that new facility and you start having to cut things because of cost, we have to make sure that we don't cut something that's going to tie our hands behind our back to provide the product that we already do. So we just made sure to say those things under operation. And when it comes to capacity, the major thing in that list there is the percentage of capacity. So people in my position, whether it's at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts or the Taxi, which is a 2,800 seat Buell Theater, or all the way to the Taxi in Thornton, which is a 70-seat theater. What we're more concerned about is not total numbers, but is usage of the space. What capacity are we using the facility at? So we have 320 seats right now. At the end of the run of a show, I'm not always concerned with the total numbers. I want to know what that capacity was. Were we over 80% capacity? Because that's good. If we've got productions that are at under half or whatever, that's not good. That means we're not using the facility right, and it's not a good patron experience. So these are all considerations that we have put in there. The biggest change that will happen in this potential new facility is that middle section there of revenue generation. I cannot overstate, and the foundation cannot overstate, how important it is to build a rehearsal space in this new facility. The problem we have had for the last 40 years, and NYT is the perfect example, when we do Mary Poppins, for 9 weeks I have rehearsals on stage. I cannot sell tickets to a rehearsal. Right? So with a rehearsal space, I move all of those rehearsals into its own designated space, which then frees up the theater, which then creates a lot more capacity. So I'm able to put more products up there, whether it's stuff that we do, stuff that we present, that we bring in from other places, or with rentals. So right now, the more important part is to build these support areas, which are in the concept plan right now, and is perfectly in line with the public input. With those support spaces, that's what's going to get us to the next level for the next 10, 20 years. It will create all of this potential for new programming. There's all kinds of things that we're going to be able to do in a new space. One thing that I would point out is the lobby. So by having our own entrance, that's going to greatly change the experience for the patron, right? So currently, right now, we've got this great facility, and unfortunately, on a Friday night, a couple comes in to see a show, and they're walking in next to people in swimsuits and sweaty basketball players, et cetera, right? And so in this new facility, we want to be able to control the experience from the time you get out of your car and sit down to see the show. So when you go see Frozen at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, Frozen was great. It was a great musical, but it was also the experience of being there. It's going through that beautiful lobby and the experience, being able to go buy a glass of wine if you'd like. So that's going to be a huge added value in this new facility. So those are just examples of things that we would be looking at doing. By having the community room, if that stays, that's going to be a great opportunity for us to expand programming as well, because we could do some fairly non-traditional theater in that space as well. So we could talk about this all night. That's just a summary of what the foundation does. Thank you again for having us here tonight. I would be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Joyce, first of all, I want to thank you for the number 300. we've talked about that, you and I, for a while.
Oh, yes, yes.
You know, so I think that's a great, great thing to look forward to. For you to consider, you were talking about rehearsals and you can't really sell tickets. For you to consider this, I mean, up in Aspen, they sell tickets for their rehearsal musicals.
They do, yeah.
So you might have a dress rehearsal that you could sell tickets for. Just a thought. It's just wonderful what you guys have been doing. I mean, it's been a long road and a lot of improvements. So thank you all. That's great.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of things, and I'm not sure, should I bring them up now while he's here, or should I wait until the resolution? They're specific to the amount for the per capita.
I would wait. Is that okay with you? I mean, I would wait if we're going to talk about capita, or do you want
Are you leaving, or are you going to stay in?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
Okay. I'll wait.
You bet. Well, and actually, one thing that I can clarify while I am here, because I didn't illustrate it that well when we were on that slide, the per capita dollars are actually the thing that gets the ball rolling for the foundation. So when the per capita dollars are released from City Council to the foundation, and the foundation gets that check, we are then able to go out and get all of those grant monies. So that's what triggers SCFD, the Colorado Creative Industries grant, getting the donations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the importance of the per capita. But that's just the process, and I can certainly answer questions later.
Can I ask a question? So on your last slide, it said possible new programming, public art. Your city mural program, what were you kind of thinking of?
Yeah, I know. I really could take up like 4 hours of your guys' time. I really could.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's great is this is something that we've been looking at for a few years now. So like Rosie was saying, we're looking at diversifying how we do public art. And something contemporary right now that's become extremely popular and extremely effective in getting to diverse populations, in working with youth, for instance. There's all different versions of this. But we're starting to talk a lot about a mural program, and that can come in a number of different forms. It can be a policy for how things are done within the city. It can be a program by which we do something on a temporary wall, or it goes on a public building. What we've really been narrowing down to right now, and code enforcement has actually even shown some interest in it, is we have all these great tunnels that are under I-25, right? And especially this one that's kind of back behind the recreation center, with like food truck carnival and all of those things. It's become an extremely busy tunnel. It's a little scary. It gets a little dirty and gross in there. It would be great to do a mural under, through some of these tunnels, to do an expression of who Northglenn is, or, come up with some great theme and put that in there. So there's a lot of ideas that are going around right now, and when we zero in on something, we would bring that to council and ask for your approval about it. But that was just an example of, not necessarily with the new facility, but a big possibility.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah. Michael, drawing attention to your memo, it says the Northglenn Arts Humanity Foundation will strive to provide an art destination that is widely recognized through unique and visibly interesting programming that recognizes the wide variety of cultural influences in the city and the surrounding community. The cultural influences brings me to Metro is hosting a mariachi festival this weekend. That's the Hispanic culture. We don't have anything like that. Native American culture, we have the powwow that is independently sponsored but not part of the city. African American culture, what are we doing about the African American community? The Asian community. We're a diverse community, but it seems like our programming isn't as diverse. You have any comment?
Sure. So, we actually, the issue right now is that every city is trying to do the mariachi festival. Every city is trying to do this and that and the other. Our approach has been, for instance, on our summer movie series, we are collaborating now with Cine en el Parque. So we approached Comercio de Colorado to get guidance from them to say, what do you need? What do you think Northglenn should be doing? And I work with Manny now, and this will be the second year that we've now collaborated with him. We'll be doing that again. So one of the movies it has Spanish subtitles. So our approach has been is to augment programs that we're already doing to make sure that we're meeting a need. And it doesn't have to just be ethnic diversity or, what we have to be careful of is to make sure that the programs that we are doing right now are not exclusive, that they are inclusive. So, whenever you come to a Northglenn Youth Theater production, which is not for anybody's background, it's for everybody's background. When you see a production in there, it's there's all kinds of diversity, male, female, different ethnic backgrounds, that sort of thing. So that is a focus of ours. Cultural specific events are something that we can certainly look at. I must say that there's not a great history of cities being able to just kind of say that one's doing it, so we're going to give it a shot, that kind of thing. So we've really tried to integrate it into the programs that we do.
Just something small. We have 4th of July Pirate Fest with different bands. Mm-hmm. Why can't one of those bands be a mariachi? Why can't one of those bands be rhythm and blues?
Yeah, well,
why can't one of those be Native American culture and
sure.
their entertainment factor? Just start out with baby steps.
Right.
My favorite movie.
Well,
Bob.
And I'd be glad to walk you through a lot of our program. We do that all the time. Actually, we do. We very, very specific types of bands that we brought in that are ethnically diverse and celebrate different cultures and that kind of thing.
I've not seen it, Mike. Next time one comes, let me know.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I'd love to attend.
My pleasure. You bet.
I get to see one.
You bet. Okay. Come see Coco this summer. It's August 8th, and it's going to have Spanish subtitles. And Cine en el Parque is actually a huge event where we bring in food trucks and all that sort of thing. So that's going to be a big event, and I think you'd like it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Any other questions for Michael? No? Well, I would just like to add that was, if somebody came in here and didn't know what NAHF was about, they know now. It was a really impressive presentation. No, it was impressive. And you are such a great advocate for arts in Northglenn, so thank you for everything that you do for us.
You bet. My pleasure. Thanks, you guys.
Michael.
Uh-huh.
All right. We will move to public invited to be heard, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one come forward, we will move to the financial report with Jason Loveland.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This is our fourth quarter report for 2017. These aren't our final numbers. At the end of 2017, this is kind of a cash basis report, so we still owed people some money, and people still owed us some money. So when we do our audit in the next couple of months, these numbers will change. But hopefully this makes sense and gives you a good idea of our positioning at the end of the year. I'll start off with sales and use tax through the end of the year. And I do have some updated numbers that should be helpful. Year-to-date collections through December were $19.9 million. Collected through December another $2.5 million. So total collections for the year were up 3%. Through November, the December collections are in, just kind of as of last week, and we're up basically 3% again, 2.93 I think specifically. Good trend. Last year we were up 2.76%, so a little bit greater this year. We look at that inflation Denver Boulder index for CPI and kind of estimate kind of our growth based off of that, and we're right in line. Last year was about 2.7%. This year's about 3% for the projection, and then our sales and use tax are kind of falling in line with those numbers. A couple of years prior to that, we were having 10% increases year over year, and with new development, new industry, and things like that, you can expect those types of things. But to keep pace with inflation is a good thing when we're in this environment. So, Other things to note, the food tax was up 2.7%, auto use tax up 4%, accommodations tax was up 4% as well. For the year, our top 10 tax remitters were up 3.85%, and those top 10 make up about 50% of our overall sales and use tax. So, you know, the bigger group of those 10 were up a little higher than kind of overall for the city. So that's another positive thing to see, kind of those bigger industries having some success too in 2017. Is there any questions on sales and use tax? We can skip ahead to the general fund. This budget, you'll see in the left-hand column, that's the amended budget. We adopt the budget, then we make amendments throughout the year. This budget reflects those amendments. The next column, year-to-date actuals. Total taxes are at $17.4 million, and total revenues in the fund are $24 million. So you can see how important taxes are to city operations. Total expenditures are at $21.9 million. These are up about 5% over last year, but our budget was to spend about 6% more, so we would expect to see you know, an increase in spending based off of what our plan was for the year. The other financing sources and uses, those are really just uses. Three things are in that line item. You'll notice it's a little bit higher than the budget. That includes the $1.7 million transfer that we do to the capital projects funds, includes business incentives, sales tax share back, and then our losses on property insurance claims that we have through the year. So our net change in fund balance at the end of the year, you'll see that, you know, almost negative $300,000 through the year. We'll be accruing about $2 to $2.5 million of revenue into these numbers, and probably a little less than $1 million of expenditures. So we'll probably end the year plus $1 million is kind of my estimate at the time. So if that negative caused any concern, that will be changing over the next couple of months as we finalize our numbers. The Conservation Trust Fund, I guess, did anybody have general fund questions? And we can always go back. The Conservation Trust Fund, the lottery proceeds, we have 60% of the revenue collected will be accruing, you know, the fourth quarter here in the next few weeks. Expenditures, the major expenditure of the $62,000 is for the Greenway Trail replacement. That makes up about $46,000 of those expenditures. And then the large budget, again, is the project at Northwest Open Space that's kind of ongoing. In the Capital Projects Fund, total revenues at $5.3 million, and total expenditures of $12 million. The net change in fund balance, we'll have some carryover for the Justice Center of about $12 million. So you'll see that the net change in fund balance is that we have all this extra money. That's just dedicated to that project that hasn't been spent by the end of the year. And then in the Water and Wastewater Fund, total revenues of $13.8 million and expenditures of $14.6 million. You'll see the net change in fund balance is about negative $1.7 million. We had a budget planned for spend a little more than $5 million more than revenue. You'll see in the capital outlay line item the $6.8 million. A large portion of that is the Headworks project of about $4.5 million. So, and I believe that project is complete now. So, and then the Stormwater Fund, you'll see revenues of $415,000 and expenditures of $1.7 million. $1.4 million of those expenditures were related to Grange-Hall Creek contribution for a project. Again, within budget and as we had planned, the Stormwater Fund spending. And Sanitation Fund, revenues of $1.8 million and expenditures of $1.4 million. Again, the collection and spending rates will change slightly with the accruals at year end, but we made the purchases, and we'll note the revenue increase from the from the rate increase at the start of the year as well. So were there any questions on kind of the quick snapshot? This is one of the financial things that we could talk about for a long, long time, but hopefully we just touch on some highlights and answer any questions that you guys may have.
Questions for Jason from the general fund?
Okay, and then the last thing, our investments at the end of the year were at $57.8 million, and that was up slightly from the prior year. So, all right. Good deal. Thank you.
You're not going to go through all the other stuff, the fun stuff, right?
We can go through.
Geocodes and all that?
We can go through that.
Well, I guess nobody had questions, so
yeah.
Maybe I won't open that up. You guys are all looking at me like,
no,
oh my
that's
God,
fine.
Why did she ask that?
So no.
Okay.
So, well, if you want to turn to page 10 of not the presentation piece, but the regular monthly financial report, you'll see our breakdown in geographic code areas. You know, the marketplace was down year over year about 5%. City center, which includes Webster Lake, kind of Boondocks, that central area, was down a little over 1%. And then some smaller areas, Hillcrest and Washington East, so that's kind of where the Red Lobster is, and then Walgreens at Washington East were both down a little over 4% year over year. But if you remember from the beginning of the year, we kind of rebounded with great success, I would say, from being down about 7% the first few months. So.
And will these change a little bit after you get December in here too, or is it already in here?
They're not. December's not included here, but I can say that I don't think that they're going to change much. I think they were pretty consistent.
Really? You wouldn't think that the marketplace might go up a little bit just because of Christmas spending, maybe?
Possibly. Year over year, December specifically, sales tax was up about 2.6%. Didn't really move the needle a ton in spending. I think it was about a $60,000 difference from one year to the next. So it might be 4.9% instead of 5.4%, but I think that they'll stay pretty consistent.
That's okay. We're rejuvenating the marketplace, so it's going to be awesome next year, right? Well, maybe not next year, maybe 2 years, you know? Absolutely.
Some of the capital spending we don't need to go through. They're just start on page 24 of the packet, which have most of the detail on the capital projects slide that I talked about in Conservation Trust, and a little bit more on the water and sewer. There's some details behind some of those projects, but you guys see those each month, so feel free to let us know if you have questions.
Questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
All right. Lost my agenda. Hang on a second. Here it is. All right. We will move into our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Joanna, can you open the vote, please?
Consent agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to ordinances first reading, and we only have one tonight. It is CB 1903. Joanna, will you hear the title, please?
A bill for a special ordinance rezoning from C3 conditional and C4 conditional commercial to planned unit development, certain real property at 11295 Washington Street in the city of Northglenn, county of Adams, state of Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the city of Northglenn.
Mayor, motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Jim, a little background, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, planning staff will present this case at the second reading, public hearing, which is scheduled at a future meeting. But again, this is a request to rezone the property located on the west side of Washington Street, south of Malley, affectionately known as the Nura property, behind the Mile High Thrift, at 11295 Washington Street, from C3 and C4 conditional commercial to planned unit development. And the purpose is to construct a new 32,000 square foot indoor sports complex with retail. So staff does recommend approval of this on first reading. Mr. Svoboda is here to answer any questions, but again, we'll have a formal presentation at the second reading.
Are there any questions at this point? No? Hearing none. Joanna, will you open the vote, please?
The vote is open. Close that vote. And CB 1903 on first reading passes unanimously. And I would like to note for the record that the public hearing on CB 1903 will be held on February 26, 2018 here in City Hall Council Chambers.
Thank you. All right, we will move to resolutions, the first being CR4. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Thornton and the City of Northglenn for a shared victim services program.
Move for approval.
Second.
Jim, a little background, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. Again, this is a resolution to approve an IGA between Thornton and Northglenn for victim services for fiscal year 2018. We have about a 70-30 split with the City of Thornton, and so our 30% is approximately $110,000 that we make in quarterly payments to Thornton. This is very critical because without this agreement, that Northglenn would not be able to provide state-mandated support for our victims of crime, as well as family members of those victims. So we do recommend approval of the resolution, which would authorize the mayor to sign the IGA between the City of Thornton and City of Northglenn for victim services. And Chief May is here to answer any additional questions you may have too.
Any questions from council? All right, hearing none. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open. I'll close that vote, and CR4 passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to CR25. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving a license agreement between the City of Northglenn and the Regional Transportation District for the construction of a water main line for the 112th Avenue Station.
Move for approval.
Second.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. The council, again, this is an agreement to allow for an installation of a water main line in the RTD right-of-way to serve the 112th Avenue Station. I want to point out something in the budget implications. The IGA does reference a $3,500 license fee. This is actually a fee that is due to RTD, and that fee has been paid by the contractor to RTD at no cost to the city. So this does not cost us anything for this project. We do recommend approval of this, which would authorize the mayor to execute the license agreement between Northglenn and RTD. And Mr. Svoboda is here to answer additional questions you may have as well.
All right. Any questions from council? Hearing none. Joanna, will you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR25 passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to CR26. Joanna?
A resolution approving funding for the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation.
Move for approval.
Second.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Again, you heard a great presentation from Michael and Rosie tonight, so I will just cut to the chase here. Staff is seeking approval of the attached resolution, which would approve the release of the per capita funds, which were appropriated in the 2018 budget for Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation in the amount of $38,905. And we do recommend approval. This is in your budget within the grants and donations line item, and we do recommend approval. So I'll answer any questions you may have about that.
All right, questions? Marcy?
So I approached Jim earlier today, and I'm going to ask that he include his answer in the Friday report for everyone.
Okay.
Because I'm going to reference it here. I'm going to make a plea to the council here at the end of this, but last year on the 27th, we as a council had this very discussion, and we talked about increasing the funding for the per capita. It has been $1 since 1992. We've had discussion several times. It went back, we discussed it in 2016. We discussed it in 2015 about increasing it, and 5 of us on the council said in the reporting that we wanted to see it increased. So I brought it up because I admit I didn't see it, I didn't pay attention that it didn't get increased in the budget when we asked for it to be. In fact, previous council member, Kyle Mullica, is the first one who brought it up, that it needed to get increased. And I noticed that it wasn't, and we're doing $1 again. And here it is, 2018. So I approached and asked what our process might be to be able to get it increased, what that might look like. And I think that I just want to be really clear, and I know you don't have Jim's response here, and so I want to be fair to that, but when we said we wanted it increased, we specifically as council referenced the importance of programming and providing arts for kids and the great programs that we have. And I don't really remember anybody on council specifically saying it was to increase it for any kind of public art, which I get the funds go there. But we were really specific about wanting to see an increase in being able to support those programs in the city. And I'm going to stand strong with it, that I want to see it increased. We've asked for it for 3 years, and I know it slipped us. Previous council should not have approved the budget without making sure it was in there. But it's just really important to me, and I think it was important to 5 other council people last year, and some of us are still on here, and I know the arts are really important to you, and so I just really want to plead with us. I'll make my plea that I want to see it increase from $1. It's not fair that we're asking them to run with $1 since 1992. And again, my request is not because I'm specifically asking for an increase for arts. I think that sculptures, I think that's really important, and I think being able to add to CIP and asking for public art funding is one thing, but I just think it's an important asset that we have in the community here. We hear about the programmings, we hear about everything that you guys are doing and bringing here, and I just think it looks really sad that we can only give you $1 as a city. So, I'll make the plead.
So I'm asking, what is your proposal?
I don't know that I have a proposal. I think we'll have to discuss it because as I understand it, would have to be for the next budget, right? Because we're already appropriated for 2018.
That's the cleanest way to do it in the long term, but you know, we do appropriation amendments annually once we get the audit completed, and we use that as an opportunity to clean up, if you will, prior directions that we may have received after the budget was adopted. So I think you do have an option tonight, and I would just have to work with Mr. Loveland to handle that through an appropriation amendment in a few months if you wanted to increase that amount tonight.
Couldn't we put an amendment on or just change the amount rather than just wait for?
Yeah. Let me clarify what I said there. You can take action tonight, and then we will come back later with an appropriation amendment to clean that up in the budget.
So.
Yes, way to put it on the spot. Well, so I hadn't really, one really quick thing. I hadn't really thought about the amount because what I was anticipating is we would come back as conversation as the study session and be talking about it from 2019. So honestly, I didn't put a number there, and I don't know that I can say that we as council in the past had said it. I do also want to just say that, you know, I know that Kim, a previous council member, had brought up that we've even had to decrease it in past years, and she was an advocate for getting it increased. So, again, I don't know what that magic number is. Is it 50 cents more? I don't know, but I just think $1 seems for the programming that we are providing, and people are coming here, and they're attending our performances, and they're coming to our restaurants, and we give $1. What is everybody open for?
I have a proposal. I would make a suggestion, and then we can just talk about it. So let's make it $2 instead of $1.
Sounds good.
All right. So do I get a second on that?
Or
how are we doing it?
Gosh, thank you,
All
council.
right, thank you.
Clarifying question? No clarifying question?
So are you $2?
$2, okay. But are you proposing that the money goes towards specific services or just general?
So
like a general
it's
increase?
Technically just general, because then it kind of drums up this whole thing about earmarking, right? And so I guess where I was coming from with that response is that, and you'll see it when Jim sends it, is just kind of a conversation that he had in the email about public art. And I'm saying, I wasn't asking for this for public art. I'm asking for it for more, because it helps in the performance. So however they juggle the money, whether it's like it's performance, it's art, they're still getting more funding. And you know, like Michael said, it leverages their ability to get matching grants and just think it's really
Well, I know for me personally, I'm definitely for an increase, and I would prefer if it went to more of a programming aspect, because I think it brings, you know, more people into our city, and it gives our community, you know, a sense of purpose. And so
I guess I don't want to just focus on one area of programming. I would say let it be what the Arts and Humanities Foundation sees as best. But as the council retreat, I mean, we wanted to have this as Northglenn as a destination. If it's a place as arts or theater or whatever it might be, this is just another avenue to do that, and I totally support what they're doing.
Any other discussion?
I just would say thank you, council, for like letting it happen in 2018 instead of waiting.
Wait, Antonio.
Here we go.
There we go.
All right,
All right, Antonio.
You know, you have
Well,
all these women here.
I would favor a 50-cent increase for that question. You know, but if we're gonna go the dollar route, then I wanna have a piece of the pie. I wanna be able to get something back for the city that does meet cultural programs for our community. Other than that, I mean, I'm good for 50 cents, but if you want $1, then I go the other way.
Cultural programs
All
for the city.
cultural programs.
Well,
I agree with Antonio.
We said this last year, and we're gonna say it again this year, and then we're gonna say it again next year, just like we have done in the past. It's either, you know, we make a decision that we are going to do something for our community that is culturally appropriate for all of our community.
That works.
But, I mean, when was the last time you saw a Mexican band or mariachi band perform in Northglenn? Have you ever?
Yes, actually, when we had parades, we actually had the mariachi bands there walking with the rest of it. We had some of the dancers.
What year was that?
Let's see, when was the parade that we had these? We had about 3 or 4 years. Amanda, where are you?
No, I don't think so.
We're about the same age.
2004, 2008.
Okay,
Oh, no,
there you
it's
go.
older than that.
Because
It's been a while.
I was part of
Mariachis?
that. I was part of that.
A
whole
parade, okay, so.
But it was still there. You asked me. I told you. Okay.
I'm all about it.
Okay.
All right.
Does anybody else want to weigh in?
But we did have the dancing.
Meredith?
Just to speak to Antonio, just for process maybe, because I fully support doubling to 2, then I don't want to say that we're going to demand where the money goes, because there's lots of ideas. I have community residents that really want more access for single-parent families to access some of the children's programming. There's so many different opportunities.
Right.
Can we then become involved somehow in the board? I mean, I know Mayor Dodge is liaison, but is there a way to take our voice in that direction, not necessarily to the funds? Does that make sense?
I don't know how that would be handled.
You
So,
could
Michael,
give
I'm going to
input.
defer to you on that.
Okay, just get a commitment from Michael that he'll work on that.
You can.
I'm sorry, Jim.
I would just point out that in the recommendation, these funds would be unrestricted, and they would be programmed by the board through Michael's leadership. And so in the second page of the memo, it talks about the NAHF Board of Trustees will accept these funds, utilize them in a manner consistent with the mission to maintain and nurture the cultural arts for the benefit of the community. And that would be consistent then with the strategic plan that they laid out for you. So I think we're maybe going down a different path if we want to exert more control over their programming. I think the funds should be just,
Right.
if you're going to increase the amount, let the board maybe independently know how you feel about things, and hopefully they can take some of that input and guide their programming.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, you can carry that message.
Are there any more comments? So I'm going to make some comments. So first of all, I want to introduce you to Jay Jaramillo out there.
I know Mr.
Do you know him?
Yes, I
Okay,
know Mr.
so he's a great advocate.
Why?
He's
We have a
gonna be
Hispanic on the Arts and Humanities Foundation.
He's wonderful, though.
I know,
He's
I
a
know.
great artist, and he is going to be a huge part of doing some projects
I know
here
him,
in Northglenn.
and
So we
I'm
do
glad that
have
he's there.
people that you know.
Well,
support what you're talking
Right,
about.
and he just got on, right? He was just appointed to,
Yeah, I think a year, yeah.
This one I first started in November.
yeah, 2 months ago, well, 3 months ago.
2 years ago.
Jackson is.
Okay.
So, we've definitely been trying to advocate for that type of art, for all kinds of art. I don't think we've ever just gone down the road into one niche. We'd like to be open-minded about it, but what I do want to say about the per capita is that I definitely agree that the $2 is great. I would like to ask you, does it affect when you go out for grants if the per capita is higher? Do they look at that and say, oh, well, now they're getting more money from the city, so...
It does not negatively affect it at
Okay.
all. No,
Okay.
no. What it really looks like to them is just the commitment by city council to arts programming.
Okay, well, that is great. I like that. I mean, we've talked about the arts and theater being an economic driver. It's a great community builder. It gives us visibility in the metro area, and it's actually a tourism thing, too. You're inviting people in from other cities. So I definitely support. I mean, obviously, I'm the liaison to the NHF. I would not go against this in any way, shape, or form. So, yes, I support, and Clive said, do you want to add anything?
No, I'd be glad to answer any other questions. So I could certainly go over some of our council members that just have been on the board, too. We've actually had a diverse board over the years as well. So.
All right, any other questions?
Well, just more of a comment. From the Adams County Cultural Council perspective, the more that the city buys in to anything that we do, the grant process, and we see those numbers, that they look at that in a very good way, you know. So, and they like the idea that the city does have buy-in.
Very good, thank you. Yeah. All right, so the motion on the floor is with a friendly amendment to increase to $2. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
So the maker and the second both considered friendly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and yes.
And Mayor, just to clarify for the record, that would be $77,810 at $2.
I did that math. That's good.
Oh, you did.
Good. 77,000. Yes. We can afford. Okay. All right. So the friendly $2. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Thank you.
I'll close that vote, and CR 26 as amended passes unanimously.
Thank you guys for all you do.
Yes, thank you. That was great. Thank you. All right, we will move on to CR 27. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving a professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Wilson and Company Incorporated for on-call development review services.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council. This is a resolution to consider awarding a professional services agreement to Wilson and Company for on-call development review engineering services. I just want to clarify that work under this contract would only occur when directed by city staff, and really the purpose is to assist us with the development review of large-scale development applications. The intent of this is really, we know the Carl's Farm project is coming forward, and so we're going to need these kinds of external services in order to meet their schedule and to keep the project moving forward. Payment under the contract would be time and materials only, and I wanted to point out that the contract is in the amount of $150,000. However, there's really no budget associated with this project because it'll be covered through a separate chargeback agreement or reimbursement agreement, which will be approved administratively with Mr. Hoffman, of course, looking at it. And then that developer would be submitting the entitlement applications, of course, and then we would be getting our costs covered by them as part of this. So there's no cost directly incurred by the city. It will be direct billing from the contractor through to the developer. So we recommend approval, and Mr. Svoboda is here to answer questions if you have any about that as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Marcy?
Sorry, I think I might be just really missing this. So we have this account that's going to be the chargeback account, and the developer just like they have to pay it back, right? Like it's not conditional. They can't say no.
Other way around, the developer actually puts a deposit forward, And so the money is there in the city's account from the developer first.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wasn't
No,
clicking with
that's
it.
an important point.
All right. Any other questions? No? Hearing none. Joanna, will you open the vote? Please vote.
CR 27 passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to CR 29. Joanna?
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Himmelman Construction Incorporated for the Ralston House Development Project.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a great night for the Ralston House project. We are recommending approval of a trade contractor agreement in the form of Resolution CR 29 with Himmelman Construction to provide the general contracting services for the Ralston House Development Project. We did receive bids in December. The low bid was Himmelman in the amount of $1.359 million. Total of 4 bids with the high bid of $1.695 million. I wanted to update you on the bottom of page 1 of the memo. I mentioned this last week that we would have an update after this was published. I'm happy to report that on this list now we have received payments from the City of Brighton and the City of Commerce City. The correspondence from Adams County and my conversation with them last week is that the check's in the mail. So hopefully we'll be getting that tomorrow or this week. And then Westminster is still kind of hanging out there. We've been trying to correspond with them and have not received any response back. So we'll continue to push on that. I wanted to point out that although we hope you'll approve the contract tonight, we will not be issuing a notice to proceed with this contract until all the funds are received by all the municipal parties under the IGA. So there's an obligation for them to pay under that agreement. I have not received any negative comments from Westminster. I know their city manager's on the board, so I mean, we're very confident Westminster will be paying as well, and we can get this project going. So we do recommend approval, and Mr. Weber is here tonight to answer any detailed questions you may have about the procurement.
All right. Any questions?
This is my turn tonight. So if Westminster is the last holdout, I mean, I don't want to hold this project up, so are they going to get the call that says you're holding us up?
We've used multimedia forms of communication, yes.
Right.
Phone calls, emails,
So
written invoices, yes.
I just don't want to hold any longer. I just want this project done.
Yeah, the groundbreaking is scheduled for March 1st, and we thought it'd be better to recommend approval tonight rather than wait 2 weeks because we want to be able to mobilize the contractor. But I'll give you a report as soon as we get all the final payments and we've issued the NTP.
All right. Any other questions?
No, it's just other than it's very exciting that we're moving so quickly now. You know, it's been a long time. A lot of different hurdles that we've had to go through. So this is exciting for the Northglenn area. So, and actually all of that.
Yeah, I think it's important to, publicly thank all of our municipal parties. They hung in there with us while we got this going. For those of you that saw the machinations of the IGA and how long it took us to get to this agreement with 100% funding, it's been a long road, but we're very excited about moving it forward.
From what I could gather in here, it looked like a 9.5-month completion once they start. It had like 275 days.
I think that's conservative. I mean, our plan is by the end of the year for sure.
Before the end of. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
Close that vote. CR 29 passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to CR 31. Joanna, please.
A resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant Program Subgrantee Agreement between the City of Northglenn and the Adams County Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Move for approval.
Okay. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a CR 31, which is be an agreement between Adams County and the City of Northglenn to implement the 2017 program year funds from the Community Development Block Grant or CDBG program. There's a lag because of the federal funding comes in very late in the year usually, so this is not abnormal to be doing it in the following fiscal year. we're under an IGA with them, which we entered into in August of 2015, and the county is the actual the grantee of the funds, and so we're the sub-grantee. They work direct entitlement with HUD. We'll be receiving $205,019 in CDBG funds, which will be used for sidewalk replacement and handicap ramp accessibility improvements in the income-eligible areas, which are shown in the attachment. And this is a continuation of prior year efforts that we've done. And so we do recommend approval of this. Mr. Svoboda is here to answer additional questions you may have too.
All right, are there any questions? Brooke, can I just ask really quick, later will you kind of hone in on where this money goes? I know it's, you know, there's a map on here, but it doesn't say exactly what project will be done.
Sure, so Public Works actually has a map of all the locations that we do the work for, and so we can provide that information.
Just email it to
Absolutely.
us maybe, so we, okay, thank
you.
Yep. Any other questions? Joanna, would you open the vote, please? Thank you.
Was that vote? And CR 31 passes unanimously.
All right, we'll move to CR 32. Joanna, please.
A resolution approving addendum number 1 to the professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Clarion Associates LLC for the Development Regulation Rewrite Phase 2 project.
Move for approval.
Second. Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor, members of Council. This is a resolution to amend the existing PSA with Clarion Associates for the Unified Development Ordinance. And we came up with this proposal for you tonight because of the discussion we had in January about the zoning code. And we've identified that there probably needs to be a lot more public engagement than the contract currently allowed. And so we've got some list of things here that we think are going to be critical to the success of the project. Number one would be 3 additional city council meetings, in addition to the ones we already have planned for discussing Module 3, which will be coming up later this year. We've also identified 2 additional task force meetings, 2 additional public outreach efforts in the form of open houses, especially as we get into maybe some of the really detailed discussions about some of the land use and zoning categories on specific properties. We've also added in here roughly $1,900 per ward for ward meetings if you actually wanted Clarion to come out and use that venue to communicate with your residents, our residents. And I think there are some specific things that are causing the discussion of those extra council meetings. You know, accessory dwelling units we heard about at the retreat. I think there's other areas we talked about in January that might take a little deeper dive. We want to have the opportunity to have Clarion come back and have that robust discussion, and before we just try to advance something to a formal approval stage. So we do recommend approval, which would increase the contract from $173,000 by $35,700. For a total of $208,890. And again, that includes the 4 optional ward meetings, which we may or may not use. So we do recommend approval, and Mr. Svoboda is here to answer any additional questions you may have as well.
Questions? Julie?
Quick question so when it comes to public outreach, is there a website for this project that folks can go and reference?
Long walk for a short answer, yes.
Great, awesome. And then also, how are we advertising that? I think that could be really helpful in a lot of the public outreach. And then the public open houses, are those, you know, pretty much at the rec center, come by, ask questions type thing? Or what are you guys thinking for those?
So the approach that we've started to take with engaging the community that we have found as being very successful, and we're doing this in part with the traffic calming, is that we're creating an environment that answers and speaks to different types of people in terms of how they interface when they go to a public meeting. And one of the successes that we had was with the Civic Campus, where we actually had the kiosks where people could learn about the stuff. We gave a presentation where people could hear about stuff, and then we actually had an interactive work area where people could actually, you know, move things around and put boxes on it. So when we look at the zoning code, it's very abstract for a lot of people. So I think what we're going to probably try to do is to sort of relate to them how this information affects them, and how it can help transform or reinforce the character of the community. So one of the things that we're going to get feedback from you and from the task force and the Planning Commission is, what do we want to communicate to the public about that it's important, that rises to the top, that is really what we think are community-wide issues or game-changing issues that the council would like to see carried forward. So it's going to emerge as we move through this process, but ultimately that's sort of the philosophy behind it.
Thank you. A follow-up to that, I think that's a good point, is the communication side of it. And I know we talked about it briefly at our task force to do that, but I think when you say zoning code, I don't know that everyone gets what that includes, right? And
yep.
I know that you get that, but you know, when we start talking about this involves your shed, this involves a dwelling, this involves, I think all of a sudden residents are like, what am I doing with my shed? And then suddenly they are interested and they're alert about it and they're going to come out or at least call us and get some feedback. When we say zoning code, it's not.
So one of the things that we're doing is we've actually, and we don't have it ready to present to you guys yet, so I'm going to be giving away something that's coming, is we've actually retained a CU grad student who does multimedia, and it's kind of like the little 2-minute things that you see on the, like what the news does, where they don't have actual dialogue, but they have like text and narrative, and it shows different pictures. So we have these little vignettes that we're putting together that we're going to build into our social media outreach through the various platforms that we think are going to speak directly to that. Generally speaking, the best way to get people to show up to a zoning code conversation is to tell them that you're going to build high-rises next to their house and forget about the character of the neighborhood, and they'll just show up in droves. It's a great way to do it. I don't recommend it for this community, but we are going to try to get creative on how we reach out to people and do it in a positive and constructive way. But we have heard that throughout the council for over the last couple of years, and that's part of the reason why we're coming back to this. Because just to kind of bring home to Jim's point, when we first put this together, and keep in mind that this was back in 14-15 when we originally put this scope together, because we had already started this. The first phase assessment is that the sort of the direction we got was this council didn't want to be as overly engaged or engaged in the process. They more or less wanted updates, and so we structured the engagement with Clarion in that fashion. And things have obviously transformed in that period, and so now we're trying to move forward to where we definitely are making sure we're getting more of that engagement.
Thank you.
Well, next question. So the $1,900 for each ward meeting, is that just to cover the cost of the Clarion Associates?
That's correct. Yep.
Any other questions? No, I think it's definitely warranted because you need to do more outreach, and I think it's a small ask to discuss such a huge document. So yes, I'm on board. Thank you. Joanna, would you open the vote, please? Thank you.
CR 32 passes unanimously.
All right, Jim, you are up with the annual work plan update.
Mayor, before we move forward, is there some way we can turn the air up? I mean, it is freezing on the side. I mean, we all have coats on.
Somebody who knows how to do it can do it, sure.
I mean, it is freezing over here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Is that why you all have your coats on down there? Yes. I was like, wow. It's like hot up here.
Kind of moving around.
I had to take mine off because it was too hot in here.
Okay, sorry.
That's quite all right. Make sure everyone's comfortable. So, well, I've got a lot of slides that are in your packet, so I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but please stop me if you have questions. I've got this as a two-parter tonight. So we're going to walk through the 2017 annual work plan, highlights, if you will, some data points, and then the second part, or the last half, or two-thirds or third, will be CIP, which will close with some pictures, because it'll hopefully bring it home for everybody about what we're doing. Again, I just want to point out that the purpose of this is to track our projects, our operational initiatives, and operations data. So we have a variety of spreadsheets that we've been using. I've shared those with you in terms of the project and operational initiatives work plans. But we also have some data sheets that we've been tracking. And so we're continually enhancing that, trying to find out what data is important. And we divided them into two categories of reactive and proactive. And the idea behind that is that proactive data is something that we're trying to influence. We're trying to influence the trend on those things. The reactive is more things that just happen to us, if you will. And so you'll see some of the distinctions tonight in that we've set goals for those proactive numbers, and the reactive ones, we haven't set as many number goals, if you will. Data that's collected annually or quarterly will really enable us to analyze these trends over time. And so I'm happy to report this is the first year we have 2016 and 2017 data for at least since I've been here. But the departments have been collecting a lot of this data for years. And so it's really just how we've kind of synthesized it for you tonight. So I want to point out that you'll see these slides with the green check mark. That means something has been completed. And a lot of these things have been completed in the prior quarter. I've also, because this is an annual report, included some of the annual projects that were on the work plan that were also completed. So you may have seen those before. I'll try to get through those relatively quickly. The other thing I'd point out, you can see in the next 90 days, it's important to note that this is as of December 31st. So you might see something that says next 90 days, and you'll say, well, geez, that happened last week. Why aren't you reporting on it? So we'll include that next quarter. So again, with the Justice Center, we had the formal column beam signing event. Can you believe that was back in October? But it was in the fourth quarter. We're continuing O&M budget planning. You've approved the FF&E contract, of course, this quarter, and we're working on the intersection, the traffic signal design. Ralston House, need I say more? You approved the contract tonight. We are waiting for the final funding from our municipal parties, and the groundbreaking is March 1st. Civic Campus, 4 of the 5 scheduled workshops for the Recreation Center project have been completed. The last one's tomorrow night. And so we did provide an update to you in the fourth quarter, and we'll be coming back again with more updates in March. So here's some data here, and I want to point out the difference between the colors there. Hopefully the orange shows up a little bit better than what I see on paper here. But I wanted to point out that the numbers in black represent just a data point where we either didn't have a goal or didn't meet the goal for the given year. The orange represents an area where we exceeded the goal. And as you can see from some of those, like lane miles of street sweeping, we had a very achievable goal of 500 miles. And we did over 3,000 miles last year. So it's an example of how I'm going to be working with the department heads to set goals that are maybe a little harder to achieve, more stretch goals to try to achieve some of these things on an annual basis. We've kept up with crack sealing, miles of pipe jetted. I want to point out that this is maybe pipe that had to be jetted more than once in the year. So if we hit it 3 times for a mile, it gets counted for 3 miles. So you see, I didn't realize we had that many miles of pipe in the city. Well, that's because we're counting some over again. Yes?
On this particular graph, does the yellow font mean that that was a goal area?
It means that we hit the goal for 2017. Okay. So so you can see lane miles of street sweeping, we had a goal of 500 miles and we hit 3,000 miles. So the numbers in black, for example.
Snow removal.
Yeah, we didn't have a goal for that because that's reactive. So although we did 9,000 miles last year, we did 5,500 miles this year. It's hard to set a goal for that. We'll, of course, budget for materials and overtime and those kind of things, but that's a really hard one. On this screen, you can see fleet readiness. So we want our fleet to be ready to go 95% of the time. Theoretically, only 5% of the fleet is in the shop. And so you can see in 2016, we hit 96%, but this year we missed it a little bit. Okay. I should point out, too, that these are organized by the existing council goals. So you saw that was kind of goal 1. This would be goal 2, talking about fiscally responsible government. Clearly, as you're looking at these, some of these are going to fit multiple goal categories. I just tried to tie them to one to make it simple to explain tonight. The records management system, again, this is in the police department. The data conversion was completed and tested. Patrol training is completed. Investigations training is ongoing right now. We plan to go live with that this quarter. And then the other communities, because this is a partnership with our Adams County communities, are going to follow after us. We're actually the guinea pig here. I've got to give a lot of credit to Todd in our IT department, who has really carried the water for the whole county. He's provided a lot of expertise that a lot of other cities didn't have that enabled us to go first. Public Safety Policy and Procedure Manual update. This is a goal in 2017. We're about halfway through. There's continuing ongoing revisions. And for those of you who have seen a Public Safety Policy Manual, they're voluminous and very detailed and need to be very legal as well. Post-training, again, this is a 2-year effort. So we completed all the requirements. We are in compliance with the House bill, and we're, of course, ramping up for the next 2 years of compliance. Just some hiring stats, and these are as of the end of the year. We had 2 police record technician positions open, 1 part-time evidence custodian open, and 3 police officer vacancies. And we'll be coming back with the staffing plan in March, so we can continue the discussions we've had at the City Council retreat, as well as in prior years. The Rec Center software, you heard the online ticketing has been going well, I think, finally. That was a little clunky to start, but that was implemented earlier last year. Got another category of government policy. You heard a lot of this information when we had the discussion on water last month. So again, it was all hinging upon the water rate increase, which was included in the 2018 budget for this year. Capital project financing. Again, as tied into the budget here, we were identifying short and long-term capital financing plan. This was really for the 5-year CIP, but moreover for the Civic Campus, to show how we were going to be able to pay for the Civic Campus Phase 1. It was very dependent upon also the water and sewer rate increase, which you approved, and the voters approving the 4 mills on a permanent basis, which they also approved. So here's another chart. I just want to point out a couple of things on here. You can see the Parks, Recreation, and Culture hit almost all of their goals last year. And just to emphasize on what Michael Stricker was talking about, the number of booking days in the theater, participants, visits, tickets sold, volunteer hours, all up and all exceeding the goal for this year. So a lot of good news there. Information technology. I just wanted to point out a couple things here. You can see that website session visits went down just a little bit, but the mobile visitors were up. And I think that's a trend that we're all aware of, that people are going to be accessing our information using their phones and other devices. And so with our new website coming online, that's going to be a key component to make sure that people are able to access that information. I also want to point out that I actually took out the social media stats out of this report, so you won't see them as you saw them last quarter. And largely the reason for that is I was only showing Facebook and Twitter on our main city page. And after some discussions with staff, I think we need to go back and look at those metrics again, because we have a lot of social media going on. NAHF has it, the Youth Commission, other groups. And so I want to take a more comprehensive approach and give you some real data, as opposed to just saying Facebook went from 2,400 to 2,700 people, because that's just a small snapshot of the city website or the city social media. Another thing here I like to point out, although turnover is a little above our goal, workers' compensation claims is a decreasing trend. Now, of course, there's a story behind that. How severe were those claims, right? But I can tell you that the trend we are on with our insurance provider, CIRSA, is a good one. They use a 3-year rolling calendar to determine our rates, and so this trend will only help us in years going forward and hopefully save us some money. I'm gonna skip through this Goal 3 a lot because I deliberately had Debbie come tonight and give you her update. So you've heard a lot of these things. Again, we're continuing to work with the new owners of the marketplace to stabilize that. And they're talking about some pre-planning for their entitlements for the theater building that you heard about last week. Huron Center, again, I would give you a couple items here. The anchor tenant announcements really did occur about 10 days ago. And so very exciting there. Construction is also underway at the Garland Center on the new Starbucks. That ribbon cutting, believe it or not, is February 20th at 4 p.m. So they moved that thing over there, and then 3 weeks later they're going to have that ready to go with the CO and open. Again, the Belco property is where the new Starbucks is, so that is open now, of course, as of January. And the NER 112th property, you just saw that tonight, the first reading of the entitlements for the courts project. So again, moving forward. Talk about the Brownfield Grants Administration. Again, we've been using these funds. Debbie has been managing this to do 6 phase 1 reports. We did air quality testing at the Huron Center. We've really been leveraging those federal dollars to assist us with redevelopment. And I think next year is the last year of that, so we're trying to get that money out there. Economic Development is in the process of redesigning their website as well. It will be implemented with the city's website, so it's definitely in concert with that effort. They're also working on a video production and increasing their social media activity as well. So this is an example of another group of the city that we need to report out to you on. We were, just looking at the city's social media, but ED has their own as well. I'm going to skip through this. I just wanted to point out that, although we did have the 20 business closures, we had a net of 59 new businesses in the city this year. So very good. And the BRE visits were 25% over the goal. And that's business retention and expansion visits. Permit valuation is up pretty dramatically, as you can see, about a 30% increase over last year. I was trying to determine with Brooke the number of why the residential went from 2 million to 10 million, and it was actually a lot of re-roofs because of the hailstorm. So we've had some remodels and things like that, but really that was the bulk of the increase. And so our total number of permits is down about a third, from 2,400 down to 1,600, but our valuation went up by about that amount, about a third. So just interesting numbers, I think, more than anything. Hopefully we don't have another hailstorm. Again, goal 4, community governance with civic partnerships. Again, talking about the budget, the work plan, legislative policy, those are all kind of operationalized things now that we've included on the work plan. Sponsorship and outside agency funding policy. Again, the committee met, developed the evaluation process, recommend an additional $5,000 for the 2018 budget, and its ongoing review of sponsorship requests as they're coming up. RTD Fast Tracks, the IGA. Again, monthly project meetings. We're finalizing our local match project planning, which is the 112th Avenue extension, and you've approved contracts for those. You approved the water line easement tonight. So we're doing everything we can on our end to keep the project moving. It's not any entitlement issue on our end, that's for sure. A couple code updates. Council members may remember this. We did a new sign code and nuisance regulations in May last year. Telephone town halls. Again, we had a great event August 3rd. You gave me some great feedback at the retreat about trying to do more of this. We have only budgeted for one event in 2018, but as evidence tonight, we can find a little money if we need to do more events. And I think there was some comment about maybe making it a video type event as well, where people could actually see what we're presenting. So we can try to enhance that, hopefully. And again, I mentioned the social media analytics. We're evaluating all the media channels. I'll be reporting back on that later. Goal 5, clean and beautiful city. Again, the stationary master plan around the 112th Avenue station was approved last spring. Again, most of that property is in the city of Thornton, but it did talk about road alignments and things of that nature, which gave us a couple different options for going forward in the future. Talked a little bit about the zoning code project tonight. You did see module 2 actually in January, and so we're going to be continuing moving forward with that project and wrap that up this year. Huron Street, the Phase 1 vitalization project, it is complete. So we have the tree removal, debris excavation, rock cobble placement. I know we've talked about additional fencing, and so we had some discussion last week about streetscape improvement plans, corridor plans.
As evidence tonight, we can find the funding if we want to.
Well said, sir.
It's only a good hour.
I walked into that one, didn't I? All right, fair enough.
Really did.
City Hall space assessment. We actually kicked this off a couple weeks ago. We had our consultants coming around with got a team of senior staff that really have a lot of people that work for them up in that part of the building that are trying to identify where the space will be best utilized once the police department moves out at the end of this year. And so we'll be looking at probably budgeting something in 2019 for some kind of improvements to this building, assuming we're going to be here for the next 6, 8, 10 years. Enhancing community image. I want to point out that that's a 2014 strategic plan goal that is carried through. And so branding and logo implementation is ongoing. I actually saw the street sign mock-ups today. And so we've got our new sign printer. We're going to be getting going with that installation, which is about a 4 or 5 year effort. And then really over the next 90 days, we're looking at trying to get those end logos on the monument signs out front here. It's been hard to find a fabricator that was able to meet our needs there, but I think we're getting very close. And again, ongoing tracking of all these related expenditures so we can give you a report out at the end about how much this has actually cost.
So say that again for the ones in front of City Hall that I've been complaining about for a long time.
We're hoping to have it done this quarter.
This quarter.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Yay. So people know we're Northglenn. That'd be amazing.
That's right. And we have talked too about the idea of longer term having some LED out there. But we want to get that logo up here now because the Civic Campus is going to take a while, obviously, and so, but that's a good long-term solution as well. Related to that, you heard Michael Stricker talk about the marquee sign, and so that's a CIP project. We do have to wait for CDOT to be done and out of the way, and so they told us it was around this time of year, February, that they would be completed. And last I checked, they had pretty good weather all winter. So hopefully we're going to be on track to be able to get the marquee going out there really soon.
Jim, is there a new sign going there?
Yes, that's another one that's being fabricated, is we'll be putting it up on the wall there as well. So related to enhancing community image, again, for those of you very familiar with websites, you can correct me if I say something incorrect here, but the hierarchy has been developed. We've started to develop the content migration. I know that I personally looked at some pages for the city manager's office about making sure our content is correct. The plan is to complete that migration this quarter and try to go live as soon as next month. Related to that, which is more of a 2018 project, is the citizen relationship management system. And we're hoping that's going to dovetail so we can have a big splash all at once with the website and the CRM going live together, really engaging the community and trying to get them excited about using that new tool that we've been all working so hard on. Channel 8 improvements, again, one of the big challenges last year is we had to get the Comcast fiber so we could do the HD programming, and now we're doing live streaming of city council meetings, and that's been going quite well. Neighborhood services, I've got 3 years worth of data on here, and I just want to point out a couple of things. You'll see that the 3-year trend, if you will, increased number of cases, increased number of violations, increased number of graffiti cases. But what you see is dropping on those stats is abatements and citations. And I'm interpreting that to mean that we've got a higher level of compliance. and so that we're not getting into a situation where we're having to take people to court, where we're getting really punitive fines involved, that people ultimately are bringing their property into compliance with a lot more activity from our code staff. Livable neighborhoods and homes, again, a lot of HEAL activity last year. The bike rodeo was very successful as part of the Kids Fishing Derby. A lot of families out there. Parks and Trails wayfinding. This, again, will be part of the Bike Ped Master Plan that will be approved here hopefully shortly. And then we'll be looking at implementation as part of CIP, grants, that type of thing. The Snowstormers Business Challenge, I would note that we had 3 local businesses last year that served about 16 homes. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was 8, 9, 10 businesses that signed up after the Business Appreciation Breakfast. So very successful getting the word out to our business community to help out our residents. So it's a great thing. Again, the Pocket Community Garden, we looked at some water rebate logistics with finance. We're not able to include this in the 2018 budget as of now, but we've got it on our list, and I think it's probably going to be coming out of the sustainability audit as one possible project we could look at. And again, that sustainability effort will be later in the summer. The community classes were very successful last year. We're going to be having those annually. So again, beekeeping, chicken keeping, gardening. Again, you saw the Bike Ped Mobility or Connect Northglenn plan, and you saw that I think last week again, and so we'll be bringing that to you for adoption soon. The sustainability, yes?
Just to go back a minute for the, let's see, for the community gardens, we have one over at Stonehawker, and I know it's not included in what you're discussing, but totally supported by the city and the Historic Commission, so how do we get that connected? I mean, because it's part of the city.
Yeah, I'll talk with Becky Smith and see what how we can.
We've been doing it for a while, and
is that open to the public?
Right.
All the time?
What do you mean by all the time?
I mean, like they can go there unattended and work on it? Or?
No, because we keep gate locked.
Right. Okay.
Due to security reasons. I mean, because that's on property over at Stonehawk.
So I think that's a great model. We're looking at doing something that would be more 24-hour accessible and possibly spread them out throughout the community, like a pocket garden. If you've heard of a pocket park where you kind of shoehorn something in, it'd be that type of effort.
Okay.
But we can definitely play off of that
I'm
for
just
sure.
throwing that out. I mean, since we support it, I mean, you know, and it is something for the community.
It is in the audit. It is in the sustainability.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Related to that, we did kick off the sustainability audit at the end of last year. We have been having multi-departmental meetings with the consultant, and really it's to identify what are we doing now already in our operations that are sustainable. And boy, I'm just surprised. The list is a mile long, frankly. We've got a lot of different things we're doing, so we're going to be bringing that back to you later in the summer to identify some things possibly we can enhance for the 2019 budget. The Parks and Rec Master Plan, again, this was approved by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and City Council. And that was done in-house with staff only. I think this is one of my last slides here on the work plan. Again, this gets to the issue of the police department and staffing. And I've been learning quite a bit about how to track this. In fact, I sat down with the chief, Mr. Loveland, Ms. Jensen, a couple of the commanders, and we went through an hour-and-a-half ICMA webinar on it's not just calls for service, it's really about workflow and downtime that officers may have versus programmed time that they need to be out on calls. And so this tells a small portion of the picture, but you can see there is a lot of increased activity. We've had a lot more calls for service, a lot more traffic citations in last year, but we'll be bringing back some initial thoughts on the staffing for the department for the next several years, again at that study session next month. So our next update on Q1 will be in May, and I'll take any questions you have now, otherwise I'll go right to the CIP.
Any questions for Jim?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So this will be more exciting because there's more pictures and less text, all right? So this is the capital project update for 2017. Again, a lot of thanks to staff for all of their hard work this last year, getting a lot of these projects moving forward and completed. So I'm going to talk about the projects by department, and then I want to look at 2018, kind of look ahead by phase, and that'll become more clear in a moment. So a lot of projects in 2017. Again, the Webster Lake Fountain was completed. The citywide fence maintenance was completed. Fox Run Open Space, and then we've got a lot of other projects that are in various states of at least starting at this point. Some of them were intended to be multi-year efforts. Some, like the bridge repair at Croak, required a little more engineering than we anticipated. So there's a story, of course, behind each one of these things. Public Works with their capital maintenance, again, residential street program, the traffic signal program, concrete and greenway trail program, and they're also managing the pedestrian bridge repair over I-25 near the marketplace. A lot of non-capital maintenance projects, but straight up improvements. The Parks Maintenance Facility, if you've not been by M&O lately, the barn is gone. It has been torn down, and so we're actively moving forward with our contractor to get the new one constructed. 99th Avenue reconstruction was completed. School zone construction, again, which we do every other year, was complete. A marketplace utility study, which was very high level, but that was also completed and provided to the new owners. Ralston House and Justice Center, again, you get monthly updates on those and how we're doing. And then the 112th Avenue Station, the TIP improvements. Again, that's contracted now. We're just getting that moving forward. And we'll be done way before RTD. So, I'm not going to go through this in great detail because it's hard to see on your screen. You've got it in your packet, but I just want to orient you to this because there's a few of them in here. It's really a snapshot of projects and where they stand at the end of the year. And so if you look across the top, there's really two big phases, soft costs, hard costs. And so the first two areas talk about concept design, concept completion, actual design, design completion. Those are really the soft cost areas where we're paying architects, planners, engineers, things like that. Then area 3, or the construction phase, is where all the hard costs come in. So it's usually about an 80-20 split, hard costs versus construction or versus soft costs. But you see, that's where we get actually into the invitation to bid, the construction, the actual completion and acceptance. And so again, I've got details in each one of these projects, but I just wanted to give you the highlights there. So we have one for Parks and Rec. We have one for Public Works. And then you'll see the one for planning. I had to make it a little different color because they really don't ever get into area 2 or 3. It's really concept design, whether it be a master plan for bike ped, a zoning code update, a station area master plan. There really isn't any design or construction at that point. So they really end in that first phase there. You can see that most of the departments have completed everything, but some things are multi-year efforts by design. So just some quick annual maintenance photos and capital project photos. An example on the left there of a concrete repair program where we find a broken curb or something that's really destroyed. We'll go out and just replace sections of it. Same thing with residential street program. We're going out and either seal coating a street or we're chip sealing. And in the rare cases, we need to do a full-blown mill and overlay where we're milling the asphalt and overlaying it. That becomes a CIP. That's not part of the residential street program. Again, completed projects in 2017, a shot of the Webster Lake Fountain. It died on us a couple years ago, and it's pretty critical we replaced that. Fox Run Open Space, I've got some photos, and then the citywide fence maintenance. So again, Fox Run Open Space, that was a great effort. I think a lot of community involvement there. Really improved the access, fixed a lot of the drainage issues that were adjacent to some of the homes. there's some cool interpretive signage and things like that. So really great project. These are the Public Works completed projects, and I've got some photos of some of these. Skip right to those. So here's 99th Avenue as an example of a street that was really beyond repair. We could not chip it anymore. The sub-base was getting so bad. You can see a lot of just open potholes and things, and so it's a before and after picture of what happens after a mill and overlay. Grange Hall Creek, the infamous sinkhole. For those of you that were not out there before, this was a pretty bad situation. We've leveraged our dollars along with some urban drainage funds to complete this project. And so you can see those are the before pictures. And although it's not as green, it's much better. The after pictures show that the banks have been stabilized, the trail is safe now. We've removed construction fencing. It's back to the way it should be. So quick look ahead. Again, there's multiple phases with these projects. So we really don't have any phases or projects in phase 1 of planning and budgeting right now. I think the City Hall space assessment is a project in phase 2 where we're really looking at conceptual design for the project. As I mentioned, planning has these projects that are more in phase 3, concept completion, so the zoning code is in there until it's done, the sustainability program, which you'll be seeing later this year. We don't have any design RFPs that are necessarily out on the street right now, but we do have some things that are in the process of design completion. So the Kiwanis splash pad and bathhouse, here's the concept design. And then the artistic elements of the splash pad addition. So again, this will be a splash pad addition and a new bathhouse that will be completed on the project. The Ped Bridge repair, we do have that under design right now. And again, this is just to repair the bridge. The replacement cost was really prohibitive, like 5 to 6 times as much as repair would be. So we think we can get some good useful life out of the structure. For those of you who don't know, we actually did a pedestrian counter on the bridge to determine if it was worth saving, and we were amazed at the amount of traffic it receives from pedestrians. The typo at the top there, first one of the night. So that, again, that's Q1 2018 look ahead, the Northwest Open Space facility improvements. So we're in the process of the construction invitation to bid on that project. And you notice there's a few products from last year that were carried over. So the Rotary Park dugout replacement is ongoing. I believe the old ones have been removed at this point. Village Green Parks equipment, that's if not finished, it's close to being finished. And then, of course, we talked about Ralston House. Public Works will continue, of course, the residential street program. We're getting out in front of it a lot earlier this year than we did last year. We were doing a lot of construction in the fall, and so this year we should be able to do that late spring, which should hopefully get us some good pricing. Talked about the park maintenance facility. There's a building of the old barn, again, no longer there. And, of course, the Justice Center opening in the fall of this year. So now that was very quick, rapid fire, but I'm open to any questions you may have too.
Julie? I have a quick question. So for the Kiwanis pool design, is that design finalized with the new splash pad put in there?
I'm going to have Amanda answer the specific. I believe it is, but.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have, so concept designs went out to the public earlier this year, late last year, and the pieces have been selected. We're in the actual design process right now. We're at about 65% plans, and those will be going through DRC for review, and we should be ready to bid construction here this summer.
Okay. And just a question on that project, just because, I'm new to this, but so is there a reason why the splash pad is inside of the fence and not like an open public?
Yep, so we wanted to be able to provide more interactive elements, one, and have above ground elements and have things that in potentially in a space that's outside of the fence, maintenance on that would be tremendously higher if it's not in a supervised area. So we would like to consider, and we'll be talking with Parks Board. We talked with several facilities, did some site visits in the last couple of years, and I think it was Inglewood. They chose to drop their drop-in prices for their outdoor pool pretty significantly when they did that, when they added a splash pad on inside the space. One, they saw a lot of usage, but they dropped their fees to about $1 a person. Not necessarily proposing $1 a person, but we do want to make sure that we're providing really accessible spaces, that people have good amenities, that they're, I mean, one of the things we saw at some of the unsupervised parks, they don't have locker rooms, they don't have bathrooms, we saw kids changing behind towels in a picnic pavilion. So it didn't really have the amenities to support participating in a splash pad, especially if it's someplace people are going to as a destination versus walking distance from their home.
I was just curious. I have my son's birthday party at the one in Arvada every single year. And so I was really excited to have it, and then to hear that it wasn't going to just be open.
We did go visit the one in Arvada and talk to them a lot about their maintenance. It's tremendous. They're spending many, many, many hours out there. They did warn us again. They said, whatever you do, no water balloons, because you will spend all day cleaning them out. But they have almost dedicated staff who are there 3 to 4 times a day for multiple hours at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Jim, thank you, and staff. I know this is a lot of repetition, but actually it's great because it's a trackable plan where we can see the project from start to finish. It's something council's really needed for a long time. So I do appreciate all the hard work that everybody puts into providing this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I am fortunate to get to report it to you, but obviously there's a huge team of people getting all this stuff done for all the residents, so thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. We will move to communications, and I believe we'll start with Jordan tonight.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Meredith?
I have a couple things. First thing, I went to the Access Housing fundraiser on Friday. That was amazing. That organization, I think, is something that we should partner with in the future. They're providing living environments, but also the wraparound services for homeless families. I was just extremely impressed with the board of directors and the president and the way they put on a good fundraiser. It was not only fun, but they do a really nice job, and they have lots of creative ways. I spent lots of money at the silent auction, got all sorts of goodies, but they have lots of creative ways to generate funds. And what they do with their money is amazing, and how they help families. So I really encourage us to continue to support them as a city, because I think they're providing a great service. They had a family come and kind of share their story and describe how the services got them back on their feet, and it's good stuff. It's the real deal. They're doing good work. So I would encourage everyone to go if it comes around again. It's a good organization. And the second thing is I am going to send everyone, I was going to do a piece of paper, but I think I'm just going to send you a Sign Genius link. Try to go a little techie for Read Across America Day. Because our 2 partner schools, the Studio School and Stukey Elementary, are both very, very excited to have us join them on Read Across America Day, which is March 2nd. And this is partnering with the Youth Commission. They're putting it together, and they've done a great job of reaching out to schools and organizing. They're still seeking donations because their goal is to be able to donate a book to every class, both elementary schools. So we've got lots of fun stuff around it, between balloons and little pencils and little gifts for the kids, but the most important part is us showing up to read. So if you have flexibility on the morning of March 2nd, there would basically be 4 opportunities to openings at each school. So the hope would be that you could start perhaps at 7:45 and read to a class, and then read to a second class, and then switch schools and repeat that process. So I will send the sign-up genius so you can decide. You can pick the grade level that you like best. The Youth Commission had lots of conversation about which grade level would fit for Mayor Dodge in particular.
What does that mean?
Well, what it means is which grade levels do a city study. And so we looked at possibly the 4th and 5th graders. It matches their curriculum. And then we did also talk about the fact that we've partnered with, no, they'll know more about your job because they'll have the background.
Government, yeah. Got it.
But we also are partnering with Chief May and some of his guys, and so guys or gals. And then we also talked about how kindergartners, anybody in uniform is super exciting. We can't wait to see you. And so they may respond a little differently to a police officer or a firefighter. So we sort of, but we want to have a city council member and a youth commission partner with each group. I'll send that link. It's just easier than
Oh, I have to see my schedule. What day is March 2nd?
It's a Friday.
Oh, Friday?
So
if I'm not working.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it does take, and if you only have time, like maybe you only have time to read really quickly before you head off to work, and you could do the 7:45 take off. If you could do all 4, that would be awesome, but that's not required. We just really want to have
Sounds fun.
It's going to be really fun. And both principals have repeatedly said, thank you for doing this for us.
Cool. Good idea. All right. Just a couple things. First of all, last Friday was the first winter bike to work day that Northglenn participated in. I want to tell you, it was probably the first of the coldest days. We were there, it was like 27 degrees, I think. I thought it was more like 0, but anyway, it was cold. But there was actually people on their bicycles that were going to work. So we counted probably a little more than 20, maybe a few more, but I mean, they were there. But just to say that Starbucks on 104th, they donated the coffee, and actually Doubletree donated cookies, and then there was some other little things that they were giving away. So, but thanks to the staff that hung in there. I mean, really, I mean, they were there, and like, who was it? Ashley's ponytail actually froze. I mean, I'm telling you how cold it was out there. So thanks for them getting out there and doing that. I mean, it was fun, but it was cold. Then I did go to the Savings Places conference last week, but I wanted to have a shout out for Lily Kumis. Is that how she says her last name? From the Youth Commission?
Oh, yeah.
She was part of Preserve America Youth, and there was a group of those young people that went and participated in the conference. And so I just want to say, our Youth Commission members are really, they get out there and they do a lot of good things. So the other thing, that we went to the Claude Court traffic calming the other day, and that was pretty interesting. Totally different responses from Claude Court residents versus Melody Drive. So it's going to be real interesting to see how it shakes out. So other than that, I think I'm good.
Okay, I missed the Claude Court one, but I did go to the Melody Drive traffic calming discussion, and definitely well attended, and staff did, I think, a stellar job of presenting different devices to everybody. So that was good. And was Claude well attended also?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, good. I wanted to say that our AdCog dinner that we had was a huge success, I think. It was the most people I've ever seen in that little room in Cincetti, so that was great. Probably almost 60 people were there. So it was a good mix of people, and we heard a Justice Center update from David, and Karen Stewart from Smart Commute was there to share what's going on in the North area as far as transit projects. So I think we had 2 really good speakers, so that was successful. I wanted to thank I did 2 ribbon cuttings, one with Speed Pro Imaging, a new signage company that's opened here in Northglenn, and the new Starbucks at 104th. So those were great, and welcome them to Northglenn. And then tomorrow is the last rec center open house where you'll get to give your public input. So it will be in the senior center, and it will be held from 5 to 8, and it's very important that you come and tell us what you'd like to see and what you wouldn't like to see. So, yeah, please come out.
I just have one thing, and first of all, I want to apologize to Mayor and Council and staff for my comments during our study session last week. I know that it's my responsibility to know when the mayor is absent. Not to be reminded, and I was not aware, and I made a comment that wasn't appropriate, and I want to apologize for that. I take responsibility for.
Your comment wasn't inappropriate.
Well, it was.
I didn't get it. That was the problem, because I was out of the room. It was like, what did I just walk into?
Well,
I'm going to watch it back. It was entertaining.
I did some self-examination. I thought it was inappropriate, so I want to apologize for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's nice. Not necessary, but thank you.
You're being hard on
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, don't worry.
All right, so just a couple of things. So the Business Retention Committee met on Friday, and we are looking at our dates for the Business Appreciation Breakfast, which will be held in October. So hopefully soon we'll have confirmed dates for you all to put on your calendar. And we're also going to be doing our annual business survey that will happen in the spring. And I know for our businesses, it might seem like you get this every year, because you do. And what's really important about it is we are able to track and be able to see the trends as to what's changing in your business and what better or additional services that we can provide. And it's also how we gauge our lunch and learns. So I know it's like a 3 to 5 minute thing, but when you see that hit your inbox, please respond to it and take the time to fill it out. And then if you didn't get to see the Starbucks move, then pick up the building and move it. It is the most fun and impressive day that you can spend, trust me. So we have all of the videos that take you through the series of them picking it up on 104th and bringing it over to the new location and installing it, and they are on the city's Facebook page. So I would encourage you to play those. They did such an amazing job, and it was really great to see all of the crew afterwards, like when they set the last unit, like just the teamwork, like they're all high-fiving everybody, and it was just a great day and experience. And then the last thing I just wanted to ask, this is more of a communication or a question thing for Jim, is I just wanted to check in. You know, we've had some conversation about our snowplow policy, and so I'm just wondering what our additional cost might have been to the city for the snow removal that we did this weekend in plowing every single street and sanding them, and if that happened on overtime, because it doesn't match our policy. Can you check into some numbers on that?
Yes,
absolutely. I have just 2 quick things. On Friday, I was able to participate in a Northglenn High School practice-based learning project that the STEM school was doing. It was on infectious disease epidemiology, and really it was about how to prevent influenza spread in their school, which was like my life. So I was very excited to participate and hang out with the kids. They were awesome, and they came up with some really good presentations. And then also last week I attended the first of many meetings for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Assessment and Planning Advisory Council. And so this group is about 20 participants from a variety of backgrounds that are going to be advising the State Health Department on doing their next statewide assessment. And this happens every 5 years. And so I was chosen to be part of the group. And then I'm also represented, my name tag says elected official. So I thought that was interesting, given all my other background. But it's great. I'm excited to be, you know, representing my community on this board and improving the health of our state.
Congratulations. Pretty exciting. Okay, Joanna.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Jim?
I'm going to be out of the office February 23rd through March 2nd. So you get an encore performance of Mr. Willett on February 26th. We're not going to let him get off without having to run a council meeting before he retires. So I'll be out that week, out of town but available for emergencies. But Mr. Will be acting in my absence.
Corey?
Nothing this evening.
Nothing this evening. Okay, then we will move to our second public invited to be heard. Limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments shall be related to an item previously addressed by the council during the meeting. And I can see in my peripheral vision who's walking up already, so.
Red.
Hi, Rosie.
I just wanted, on behalf of the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation and the 9 board trustees, I want to thank you for doubling our per capita tonight. It's very meaningful to us, and we've survived in lean years and recession years and so forth. And I want to thank Councilmember Whitman for bringing it up. And it was a dead horse for a lot of years, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. Secondly, I have a second item, if that's okay. Councilmember Leidy, I just kind of looked at Debbie Tuttle back in the back of the room. She's the president of the Northglenn Thornton Rotary. If you're interested in 35 members, for Read Across America. Sure. I don't know if anybody knows this, but one of the international goals of Rotary is literacy. So this would fit right into what we do. So maybe you could get in touch with Ms. Tuttle.
I certainly can. I know the Youth Commission is starting this as a small project. Okay. But it sounds like if we add 35, then that will.
Well, I can't guarantee 35.
Well,
but,
no, yeah, you're right.
That's how many members we have. And,
right.
I
think we could definitely blow this up in future years.
It just so happens we have a board meeting tomorrow night, so we would have to get a consensus from the board before we proceed. But just the information alone would be helpful.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes. Thank
you
so much.
Thank you, Rosie. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak to council? All right, seeing no one, I am going to adjourn the regular city council meeting and move to enter into an executive session pursuant to section 4.5 parent A of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for personnel matters regarding council appointee evaluations.
Second.
Joanna, would you open the vote, please? Thank you.
Motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
Thank you, and we'll take a short break.
I'm just.
You know, we'll put the cold turbine off. That was great.
Am I just the sub-grantee?
You were gone. And it was self-deprecating.
New title. First grantee. I did not. Same. Yeah, I'm gonna just lay them there. I'll grab them.
Okay.
They were so good.
Yeah, I figured.